You want to know the cold, and I mean the coldest and hard truth, it's not the 1980s and 1990s anymore. And maybe that's what Nebraska needs. Maybe they need to loosen up. Just go out there and actually try to have some fun, because they've been losing so much, it's hard to have fun. Nebraska, Nebraska, Nebraska. Where do y'all want me to start with this crap show of a program right now? First things first, let me give you a brief run through. I know many of you are already going to know this, but we got new people coming to the channel every single day. For those of you that don't know, and the only way you wouldn't know this is if you're living under a freaking rock or something, their head coach, Scott Frost, who was supposed to save the day and turn the program around, he got fired 3 games in after losing to Georgia Southern. Even me myself, who told all you bozos out there that Nebraska was going to continue to suck going into this year, I was shocked that they only won 1 out of their first 3 games. I don't think some of you quite understand how impressive and hard it is for Scott Frost to get fired before the Oklahoma game. Clap it up, clap it up. You gotta give the man some credit. I didn't think he could do it, but he did it. What makes it even all 10 times more impressive is you gotta remember, Scott Frost, he's a hometown hero. Everybody loved him. It's not like they brought in some random coach that the fans didn't like. When he first got there, everybody loved him. They wanted to continue to give this guy another chance, and they wanted to give him more opportunities and the benefit of the doubt, but it just got to the point where you couldn't excuse it. To make a long story short, he winds up getting fired. But ladies and gentlemen, hold on. Hold your horses. This isn't the end to Nebraska sucking or the end to a bad era and a bad chapter in the book. If anything, this is just the beginning. I think a great example, and this puts it into a better perspective so me and you can relate to this, it is very similar to a hard breakup. I know 9 out of 10 of us watching this, a good and vast majority, we can relate to that. You wanted it to work. You pushed and pushed and pushed. You had your ups and you had your downs, but you had to separate. It was for the best. Well, maybe that was a bad comparison because Scott Frost in Nebraska, you didn't have too many ups. You just had a lot of downs and more downs. I think a better way to describe this is the toxic ex you never want to see again or run into. This is the one ex-girlfriend where if something happened to her or she needed you to be there, you're not picking up the phone. There's good and bad news with Scott Frost being fired. The good news is that loser of a head coach, aka Scott Frost, is no longer the head coach, but the bad news is you don't have a head coach. You fired your sucky head coach, and that's great. It's a good start, but now you don't even have one. Yes, you do have the interim head coach right now, and that's currently Mickey Joseph, and I'm sure he'll do an okay job. Here's all I know. I don't know if he's going to be a great interim coach or what, but I know, and I guarantee this, he can't do much worse than Scott Frost. It's not even possible. There's still currently so many things wrong with Nebraska right now that Mickey Joseph, I know for a fact he can't fix, and the new head coach, whoever that's going to be, he can't fix either. Whoa. Hold on. I know what you're sitting there saying. Yo, Matt, what in the heck are you referring to? What can't they fix? Well, my friend, I'm glad you asked that question because I'm going to explain exactly what I'm talking about, and you're not going to want to miss out. We're not doing no intro, none of that. If you like college football, it's simple. Consider subscribing to the channel. We're building a great community. We'd love to have you here. All right, Matt, blah. Shut the crap up. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to offer you some inside information. Growing up in the Southeast, more specifically northern Alabama, shout out to the 256, by the way, I had a lot of friends who were really good at football and had a lot of D1 offers. A lot of these good football friends I had, they were on my AAU basketball team, so that's how I met a bunch of guys. If you play AAU basketball in the Southeast, you know what it's like. You're going anywhere from Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, Mississippi on any given weekend. So I was always traveling on the weekend with my teams, and we'd meet other teams, and I just got a bunch of friends that way. If you're an athlete, you know this, and if you played AAU basketball, you also know this. If somebody's really good at football, the chances are they're also going to be good at basketball, and it's vice versa. If somebody's good at basketball, they're probably going to be good at football as well. I'm not saying that's a guaranteed done deal, but basketball and football, they're both athletic sports. And just on my basketball team alone, there was about 6 guys who were football stars, and they were just playing basketball to have fun. None of them were a 5-star recruit or anything like that, but they were all around 2, 3, and 4-star recruits. They would all show me a ton of letters of offers and interest from every SEC school in the country, every Big 10 school, and every Big 12 school. And a bunch of them would also show me some USC and Oregon offers, and especially Oregon, because back then when I was in middle school and high school, Oregon, they were on the rise, and it was a popular school to talk about because they had the fancy uniforms and fancy helmets. You know what I'm talking about, man. To go along with that, we'd run into these other teams at these big showcases, and they would also talk about their offers from Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Florida State, Miami, and all that good stuff. I know exactly what you're sitting there saying. Yo, Matt, what in the heck does this have to do with Nebraska? And it has everything to do with them. All my teammates and all these other players I ran into from the state of Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi, when they talked about schools they wanted to go to and the school they was going to commit and sign to go to, None of them, not a single one, even brought up the name Nebraska. None of them, not a single one. And I get it, we're from the Southeast, but still, I was running into guys that were like, oh yeah, Ohio State, they offered me. Penn State, they offered me. Michigan, they offered me. Clemson, they offered me. USC, Oregon, they talked about all these schools, but Nebraska was never brought up. None of these kids, none of these athletes, none of these 2, 3, and 4-star recruits that I grew up around talked about Nebraska. They didn't even entertain the idea, and that is a personal story. That's a personal experience for me. I can't speak for the West Coast or even states like Texas and Oklahoma because I didn't travel to those areas. I'm talking about kids specifically from the Southeast. But my point is, and I'm going to explain it even more, there's a good majority of you watching this that more than likely you're from the Southeast as well. To go along with that, there's also a good chance that many of you're also in high school. Well, I can guarantee you those people in high school in the Southeast right now, there is a kid that you know at your high school or somewhere near a local high school around your area that he's a 3, 4, or maybe a 5-star football recruit. Now, let me ask you this question. Do you think he's even entertaining the idea of going to Nebraska? I don't think so. Maybe there's a kid somewhere in the Southeast that is, but I haven't heard of a story like that, so if there is, let me know in the comment section. And I don't want to hear none of that BS, well, Matt, you're in the Southeast, of course all the kids there, they're going to go to Alabama or Georgia. No, that's wrong. That's false, because I know kids in the Southeast right now, a lot of them, they're going to California to play for Lincoln Riley. They're going to Oklahoma. They're going to Texas. They're going to Oregon. And they're going to Clemson. Although, yeah, most of the Southeast kids are going to go to an SEC school, I still see a lot of circumstances where they go elsewhere. But you know where I never see them going? Nebraska. Go look up where all these top recruits go. You can go right now to the ESPN 300 and find a kid from Florida that's going to Ohio State. It's not a location thing. It's a brand thing. But let me ask you this question. Do you think a kid from Alabama, Georgia, or Florida in the ESPN 300 is going to Nebraska? No, and that's the problem, and it's a major problem right now. I wanted to share that because nobody talks about that or brings it up. I've seen all the articles and stuff on Twitter where people are saying, okay, this is the top 10 candidates for the job, and these are going to be the 5 or 7 best hires. None of that matters because Nebraska is Nebraska. It's not a big brand anymore. You want to know the cold, and I mean the coldest and hard truth, it's not the 1980s and 1990s anymore. It's 2022. Yeah, back in the 1980s when Nebraska was the only game and the only team on TV, yeah, it was exciting for kids in middle school and high school to say, hey, they're on TV. I want to go play there. But once again, it's 2022. Nobody wants to go to Nebraska. Every single game is on TV now. And whether you want to believe this or not, location matters. A little fun fact for some of y'all out there, I lived in Florida last year. Now, I did wind up moving back up to northern Alabama because I love it here. But you want to know something about Florida? A lot of people that move down there are old people that used to live up north. That's where they retire. Why do they move to Florida? Why do they go down to Florida to retire? If you live up north, you know exactly what I'm about to say. They're snowbirds. They don't like the cold. They like warm weather. I like wintertime Christmas and seeing snow just as much as anybody else, but I only want to see it about 2 or 3 times before I'm sick of it. And I'm from the South. I'm in northern Alabama where it snows maybe twice every 3 years. I couldn't imagine dealing with snow 24/7 and the cold, the bitter cold like people do up north. Is it sticky? Is it humid? Is it really hot here in the summers? Yes, but I'll take that over the bitter cold. I'm sorry for people that live in Nebraska, but let me ask you a question. Not just for high school kids, but do you think anybody from ages 10 to 90 wants to live in Lincoln, Nebraska? I don't think so. Nobody. I haven't ran into a single person that has ever told me they either A, want to vacation at Nebraska, or B, just go there for the sakes of it. Whoa. Hold on. I know what you're saying. Yo, Matt, well, I haven't heard anybody say, I want to go to Alabama to vacation or visit. I know some of y'all are running to the comments to say that. I can smell you right now, you bozo and idiot, and guess what? I got a counter argument to that. It's the same thing I brought up about 2 or 3 weeks ago. You're wrong. People do want to go to Alabama. It's not to go on vacation or anything. It's for the football program, and that's it. What Nick Saban has done, not just for that football team, but that entire university doesn't get talked about enough. You're now having kids in Maine, New York, Connecticut, California, Oregon, wanting to go to the University of Alabama, not to be a football player, just be a regular student so they can be a part of what Nick Saban has done and be a part of the university and culture. I'm not playing about that a single bit. People want to be around winners in Alabama right now. They're winners. Getting back on topic with Nebraska, I think that program's done. And matter of fact, let me change that. I don't just think it, I believe it 100%. At best, I think the max potential of that program is to get back on the level of a Wisconsin or an Iowa on a good year. Nebraska's going to be good enough to go 9-4 or 10-3, but besides that, you don't have enough talent to go undefeated and even think about competing for the playoffs. You simply don't, because you can't recruit the kids in the Southeast. They don't want to go there. I know that. I'm from here. I hear what people say, and I know a lot of these top recruits right now, and none of them tell me they want to go to Nebraska, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. I do want to address this. I see people saying there's only one man who can save Nebraska, and that's Urban Meyer. And me personally, if I'm a Nebraska fan, that is the last person I want to be the head coach. I liked Urban Meyer at Florida and Ohio State, but what he did with Jacksonville, I lost a ton of respect. I think right now Urban Meyer is not a guy you want to try to come in there and fix that crap show, because he himself is a crap show. Before we end off this video, let's take a look at this. On Saturday, Nebraska, they got Oklahoma, and ever since Scott Frost has gotten fired, the line for the game continues to drop. Right now it's sitting at 11, and I don't think Nebraska's going to win this game. I wouldn't pick them to win it, but there's one scary thing about them that I want you guys to pay attention to. Nebraska right now is a team that literally has nothing to lose. And I'm sure some of you have heard this quote before: the most dangerous man on earth is a man who has nothing to lose. And maybe that's what Nebraska needs. Maybe they need to loosen up. Just go out there and actually try to have some fun, because they've been losing so much, it's hard to have fun. I'm actually really excited for that game just to see what happens. Bottom line is, I don't care who the head coach for Nebraska is moving forward. You can't fix kids not wanting to go to your school. It's not the 1990s. You're not getting all the top recruits, and you need to fix that before anything else. And obviously as well, you need to start beating teams like Georgia Southern. You need to win the games you should win. There's so many more things I could say. I'm going to end it off there. Let me know your thoughts down below. Bye, right away.